Blog Talk Radio.
Well, it's great to be back. This is Ted Hicks with Late Night Parents. You can find me on Twitter at Real Ted Hicks. You can also find me at Late Night Parent. You can find us on Facebook.com/Late Night Parents. And lastly, you can find us on the portal, LateNightParents.com. We're here live once again. I guess we're doing double duty on the Imagination Network. A lot of good stuff going on, folks. Take a quick moment of silence for those folks that were a lot of bad things happening in San Bernardino, California right now. A lot of lives lost. Story is still unraveling on what is going on out there. So I don't want to start with any rhetoric or anything else like that. But I wanted to take a moment out for those folks to talk about what's happening in the world today. This past week, we experienced something called family time with Thanksgiving. I don't know about you, but I had a great Thanksgiving. It was wonderful always seeing family. I spent it down in Prince George, Virginia, ever down in the 804 area code area. Prince George, with a lot of family members. Got to see my brother-in-law who was just recently in a motorcycle accident. He's coming along well. So I thank you, the folks who's reached out with text messages and hit me up on direct messages asking about him. And I always tell him people are asking and giving their prayers and well wishes for his a quick, speedy recovery. So we spent, I guess tonight we have on board Ms. Darby Fox. She's a child and adolescent family therapist. She has over 20 years of experience providing individual and group therapy in both the nonprofit and private settings. Darby's going to be with us shortly. But I just wanted to talk briefly about how was your Thanksgiving? You know, did you eat too much? Did you know what to say at the dinner table to your loved ones? Did you really mean it? Did it come from the heart? Or did you fill it up with idle, cliches and looking at sports? And how about them Cowboys? Boy, they got thrashed. Sorry to hear about Tony Romo. But I can tell you, just to share with you real briefly how I spent it. Spent it with family and friends, sitting amongst each other. Had a great time at the Hilton also while I was down there. So, but I got to tell you, the one quick story before Ms. Darby Fox joins us is, I don't know about you, I specifically did not want to leave on Wednesday because Wednesday was, I guess, categorized as the busiest day of the year to be on the highway. So I begged and pleaded to my wife, can we leave Wednesday morning? Can we leave Tuesday night? Well, unfortunately for me, but fortunately for her, we left Wednesday, 4 p.m. Folks, I got to tell you, it took me about 3 hours to get out of New York before, it was just traffic filled. But when you think about it, overall, I had a good time. I left at 4. I arrived in my destination at about 1:30 in the morning. Like I said, shared times with friends. Headed back to New York on Saturday. And from there, I think it took another 2.5 hours to get out of Virginia before it hit Washington, before I headed back to Long Island. So I'm not sure about you guys, but driving out there on I-95 during the holiday was, outrageous. But along with that, tonight's show is called Cyber. I have it listed as Cyber Monday. I should have listed it as Cyber Week, because there's all different types of sales and everything going on, and everything's being pushed down your throat about, sell. We can get the shipment to you in a couple of days. After our featured guest is on tonight, we're going to talk real briefly about halting hackers for the holidays. Because, October itself was Cybersecurity Awareness Month, but it should be every month. Because right now, I don't know if you know, we're getting close to 1 billion records of identity theft. That's more than 3 times our entire population in the United States. So nearly 2/3 of the Americans have heard or read something about online safety or security issues recently. And yet consumers, still say they don't take the steps to stay safe online because they lack information or knowledge. So we're going to have the information later on about that. But I think our featured guest is in the queue, and we had some telecom problems earlier tonight. But luckily, the good people at Rubenstein PR were able to come through in the clutch for me. I have our good friend, or our new friend, Darby Fox on the line. I'm going to introduce her right now. Darby, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Pretty good. Thank you so much for taking the time out tonight. And I know there was a lot of last-second jockeying going back and forth with phone numbers, but we had a conference bridge issue tonight, so thank you for being so flexible.
Oh, good. I'm glad I made it.
Yes, you definitely made it. I was so concerned. I had someone else manning the switchboard for that other conference bridge just in case, so that you could be redirected over here. But I would say within the last month and a half, I was your friends at Rubenstein PR sent me a blog post about signs for parents that their child is being bullied. The Child and Adolescent Family Therapist, Darby Fox, we're glad to have you. We want to share what to do if our child is a victim of bullying and how to recognize if our child is a bully. I for one, have an 8-year-old and 14-year-old, and I don't want to say my 8-year-old is oversized, but he's the biggest kid in the class. So I'm always on top of him just to make sure, like, hey, make sure you're not pushing anyone around. Make sure, the horsing around is kept to a minimum because of his size. But I guess you can recommend some tips to parents who suspect their child is a victim of bullying. So I'm going to decrease, and I want you to increase, and tell us, tell the parents, how to suspect if their child is a victim of bullying.
Well, the first thing that gives you an indication that something's going wrong is you'll probably notice your child withdrawing from certain activities, whether it's school, sports, they will want to avoid or stay away. And a kid that's being bullied feels kind of like they're not adequate, so they're not going to come right out and say it to you until things are bad. They're kind of going to withdraw because they'll think it's them. So once you start to notice that your kid is maybe withdrawing more than they should or than they used to, that's a good time to start to think about what may be going on, what changed in their environment. And you'll see sadness. If you see crying or anything like that, that's obviously a sign. But the best way to start is by not asking them directly, are you being bullied? Because you'll have a sense something's wrong. You want to kind of ask them questions like, who do you hang out with on recess? Who are your friends? What do you do? Are you alone? Why don't you want to go to the birthday party? Things like that. not direct questions, is somebody bullying you? And you will, again, the answers will give you the information you need to know what's happening before it gets really bad.
Gotcha. I just want to jump in here and ask you, and maybe I should have waited, Darby, because I'm going to say, okay, there was the bullying. So I'm 45, and there was bullying that I don't want to say the conventional way, but now there's the cyber piece of it that's included. Like, when and where and how should our antennas go up for the cyber
bullying is a really tough piece. That can be way more intense because, unfortunately, at the age that kids start to be on the internet and Facebook and Snapchatting and all of that, while it's probably too young, it's an age where parents have started to back away from their kids' social interaction. So you get the early teens, probably 11, 12, 13, and kids not only are very mean that way, they're doing stuff that parents really aren't aware of. Parents aren't on Facebook and things like that. And that is a time when we really should be engaged and have all of our kids' passwords. We should know exactly what's going on with them so we can watch for that cyberbullying, because that can be some of the most harmful kind.
Darby, I got to jump in here and say, it was about 8 months ago at the local library in Hempstead, New York. I was asked to speak to some of the youth there, and I was really, really excited and charged up about it because I said, okay, and I kind of feel like I can connect with my children because I try to stay in tune to some of the music they listen to, not all of it, but some of the music they listen to and some of the TV shows that they're watching, and kind of, just maybe it's me trying to stay young, but I just am the type of parent that wants to be in the know. So long story, but the short version is I sat there amongst about 12 youth aged maybe 8 to about 16. During that time span, I took out my iPhone and I said, I need everyone to stand up if you have a mobile phone. And basically, of the number of youth, everyone stood up. And I said, oh my goodness, because just knowing that the internet is, it's not locked down, it's wide open, I was kind of taken back because I said, I know most of their parents aren't in the know and aren't using Facebook and Snapchat and the one thing I said to them is, have you ever said anything hurtful using one of those apps? And almost everyone raised their hands.
Yeah,
and
because there's no accountability. You can just send it and it's gone, and no one's looking at you, no one's holding you accountable.
Yeah, that's true. So I have to ask you this. If my child is, if I think that my child is potentially being bullied, some of the tips that you just gave us, what should I do before totally stepping in and jumping in to get involved?
Well, when you first start to figure it out, or you're pretty sure that's what's happening, you want to talk to your child about approaching whoever is doing the bullying and ask them if they think they can. What would be the hardest part about confronting a bully? And so you encourage them, if it's school or on Facebook, like what is the mode? You want to encourage them to stand up for themselves, first off, especially if they're in their teenage years. But as soon as, if they're not able to do it or they've become so traumatized that they won't even consider it, you really need to look to the next step. Is it the school? Is it a teacher you need to contact? You need to get involved with the other people, the other adults that can help advocate for your child, especially at younger age.
At what point should I, as a parent who's a hands-on parent, go to the parent of the child, of the bully?
Once you've noticed that there's a considerable amount of damage, when your child is crying or completely withdrawn socially, whether that again looks different for a teenage kid than it does a 10-year-old. But when a 10-year-old won't go to the birthday party anymore or comes home from school and says he doesn't have anybody to play with or won't go to anybody's houses, you need to talk to the school, and then you need to go to the parents. We're really reticent in these day and age of saying something to another parent. But first of all, if you don't tell someone else, they don't know. And there's no way to stop it. It's something that it's outside a kid's realm, and parents need to be responsible for that.
So at what point if my child is being bullied at the school, and let's say it spills off-site, at what point are the teachers no longer involved? Or, I mean, because I would, just as you stated before, you go to a person of authority. Let's just say it's happening after school, or it's happening as my child leaves school. Should I approach the teacher, or should I not? What are your suggestions?
In the school situation, you need to talk to the teacher and then probably take it to the next level of administration if it doesn't end very quickly, whether that's the assistant head or the principal, headmaster, whatever the school's chain of command is. But you need to really pursue it, because most likely your child's not the only one being bullied as well. So it's something that really needs to be stopped, because it will pervade as they get older. Each grade, it'll continue to go on. It's not just an isolated incident. So that's why it's really important that you address the school side. But if it's off the playground, that's when you have to notice, you're going to have to observe that you are going to need to talk to the child's parents, someone else to get involved. If sometimes there's no way to get involved with the other parents, it's not a close-knit community, then you really have to withdraw your child from whatever activity that is. Or you just have to take a different route home. You talk to the bus driver, whatever it is that you need to do to ensure that it's not happening continually is really important, because it feeds on itself. It grows, and it's really, really hard for whoever's being bullied. Then they start to expect it.
Darby, I want to go at this from a different angle. And before this, I get to that point, we're speaking with Darby Fox here. We're talking about bullying. We're talking about cyberbullying. We're talking about what are some of the indicators that we should be looking at to tell if our children are being bullied. So the other side of the coin is, what if I'm suspicious of my child bullying other kids?
A good way to get a sense for that is, you mentioned one good thing early on, that you have a larger child than most of the kids in the class, so you are always kind of talking to him, just making sure he's aware of what's going on. That is something we should all be doing, is kind of monitoring their behavior. And if you hear that your child is cutting down other kids a lot, making fun of people, saying, oh, she's so fat, or he's so ugly, or they're so stupid, any of that really derogatory behavior is an indication that they're probably not nicer to them to their face, that there is something that they would, and if you have sort of the alpha child, the kid that is the leader in the group, and they're derogatory, that's a good sign that they may be isolating someone. They're going to be leaving someone out. And again, notice early on we say that they should invite everybody to a birthday party or an event. Once you start noticing that your kids are really isolating a lot of people, or that somebody is left out often, then you got to look at your own child and ask them why, and tell them it's not okay. And ensure that they extend the invitation for the play date or whatever it is. You really have to get involved as a parent to put an end to it. You can't just leave it to the children.
So tell me this much, as we're flipping the coin on the other side, how should I receive the parent that knocks on my door and says, hey, Mr. Hicks, how are you doing? I want to let you know your child is bullying my child, because that's a very touchy subject.
It's a touchy subject, and it's hard not to be defensive when Mr. Hicks is accusing your child of that. But you need to just listen and have a conversation with them and say, okay, thank you for the information, and then you need to get the other side of the story. It's also important, and I just want to add here, that if your child is being bullied or they tell you they're being bullied, you really want to get their idea of why they're being bullied. Or is it because you're not as smart, or whatever that your child, whoever's being bullied's perception is really important, because then we can sort of determine where it's coming from or how to put an end to it. So if Mr. Hicks is saying that, your child's the one and gives you a long story, you can probably tell if that's true or not. And you need to then talk to your child about it and ask them. You work through it with them. What would it feel like if you were so-and-so? How would it make you feel? What challenges do you think that kid has? And that's what we don't do well, is put ourselves in, let our kids see what it would be like to be in the other position.
That is so
true. We usually
true.
just say, don't do it. Just don't do
right.
it. And that doesn't help.
I'm going to tell you, Darby, you've given me some tips tonight. I'm not telling on myself, but I'm a realist, because I know the horseplay does happen in third grade. And, there's been times when, the teacher has said to my son, well, they were playing, a little rough, and I just want to let you know. And we,
right.
My wife and I, we were defensive. We were just like, well, what do you mean? And without sitting back and talking with our child. So, I don't know many people that would, admit to this, but I'm like, yeah, it has happened, because, my son is the tallest one in the class, and he's pretty solid. So I tell him some of the things that happen, like when you guys are horse playing around or wrestling, you got to be careful. But,
right, he's going to inadvertently maybe hurt someone, or
yes,
people may be saying you're such a big lug. Whatever it is, you just need to get the perspective of both sides.
Yes. Darby, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out, switching conference bridges, and just being so helpful and flexible with us. Tell us, because I've seen previously on Fox and Friends and other media outlets. So tell us about your website. Plug your website. Tell us best ways to get in contact with you. All of the above.
Well, on the website, it's darbyfox.com. Also, YouTube channel is the same thing, which has clips. It has parenting tips, and it has some of the TV clips that we've done already. But hopefully the website, and we're working on expanding it, gives people a place that they can ask a question that I can respond to. And it also gives tips on just different ways to look at problems, or different angles to look at the family structure when something keeps coming up and you're kind of stuck with what you're doing with it. Hopefully some tips on different ways to discipline, to think through timeouts, things like that for younger kids. So the website hopefully is a pretty interactive resource of solutions that might be a little different.
Okay. I want to give you a round of applause. And I want, definitely, I'm going to email Shay and Christina. Rubenstein PR definitely came through. I want to thank you so much for taking out a few minutes of your evening to join us. I want to say thanks
for having
once
me.
again.
It's a tough
No
subject,
problem.
So thank you.
Thanks
Have
again.
a good night.
You too. And that was Darby Fox. Really great guest, really some helpful tips. And, for me, it's a situation that I was dealing with where, my child was looked at as the bully. So it really hits home. Let's really quickly go into... We were talking about purchasing gifts. It's the holiday season. Have you put up your Christmas tree yet? What do you think about Starbucks with those the red cups? Without any mention of the holiday or anything else like that on them. Our good friend Gary Malevsky, who joined us from Snoop Wall Security a few months back, sent us an article. And it basically talked about, a few months ago, it talked about, National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And that was in October. But it really reigns supreme now because if you think about it, everyone now is, I think there was, I'm not sure of the exact amount. I'm going to say Cyber Monday generates about $3 billion of purchases. So let's put it this way. Millions and millions of online identity are stolen in America, with more than 200 published breaches. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we're now getting close to 1 billion records of identity theft. And like I said, that's more than 3 times the population. People are still saying, hey, I don't know about this. I'm not sure what to do. So a tip we should have given you for Cyber Monday, but something that's going to be relevant for the remainder of this holiday season. What to do during Christmas time and the shopping experience, and because people aren't actually going out to the box stores, the brick and mortar stores anymore. They're shopping online. Thursday evening, I had to go back. I left my brother-in-law's and I went back to the Hilton in Colonial Heights, Virginia, and the Hilton is located next to an H.H. Gregg. So I happened to walk into the H.H. Gregg, and guess what? It was fairly empty. Now, was it fairly empty because H.H. Gregg is not, a hidden store? No, people are shopping online. They don't want to deal with that. Every every Black Friday, you see the videos of people going crazy and pushing around each other and, going nuts. They're totally taking that aspect away. Why? Because people are shopping online. So what are some of the things that we should be doing? What are some of the best tips that, while you enjoyed your Black Friday and Cyber Monday and Cyber Week and the entire Christmas shopping experience, you got to do it without losing your privacy and identity or putting your child's safety at risk. What are the things you should do? You should change your passwords. And we mean all of them. So you got to do it now and do it frequently as you can tolerate. Most organizations have policies put in place where every 60 or 90 days you're forced to change your password. Maybe you should set that, mentally. You set it in your calendar reminder on your iPhone or your Samsung phone. Set it in there. Maybe the max every 120 days. Reset some of your passwords. Because your passwords at a certain amount of time become cached. Now, and, a lot of times they become cached on your local computers at home, and that's great. But what about the times when we're using these public kiosks where we just want to check something really quick? So the deal is, if you don't change your passwords often, then any unique characters you can think of, a $sign or exclamation point, replace the letter O with a 0. Because it goes a long way in preventing the brute force attacks against your password. Also, never trust anyone on the phone who asks for your password, especially if they called you. The same holds true with emails. Both telephone and email are used by people who try to get your passwords pretending to be the IRS, your bank, or someone else you have an account with. These places are never going to request your passwords or any type of personal identifiable information. Clean up your apps. You got to assume that most of your smartphone and tablet apps are malware that spies on you and your online behavior. So the question is, do you really need them? Delete any apps that you don't use often. Replace apps that take advantage of too many of your privacy settings and similar apps that don't. On an iPhone, you're not being eavesdropped on until you run that specific app. Shopping online for websites that you trust. If you don't know where the merchant is located, don't shop there. Just because they have these unbelievable prices doesn't do it, okay? If they don't have a corporate address or are located in another country, it should be iffy whether you will ever see the goods you think you've purchased. Also, if there's a shopping cart experience that's not an HTTPS, hypertext transfer protocol security browser session, then everything you type in there, your name, your address, your credit card information, is going over the internet unencrypted and in plain view for everyone to see. Never buy online with your credit card on a site that doesn't have something called SSL, Secure Socket Layer encryption installed. And it's easy to tell if you're in a secure encryption session. You will see an icon of a lock in your browser, and the website URL starts with HTTPS and not HTTP. And also if you email some merchant, no matter the reason, don't use your credit card over email. Don't use cash or debit cards. You have three major choices when shopping: cash, credit, or debit. In rare growing instances, there's even a fourth option called Bitcoin, which are now accepted at some merchants, including Overstock.com. Bitcoins are considered the equivalent of cash option because once used, you can't get them back. So if you have to choose among these options, the best is a credit card. Here's why. If you experience identity theft, credit card laws allow you to keep all your credit immediately, with no responsibility during identity theft or fraud investigation. With a debit card, your bank's policy can be to tie up your money and the amount of the fraudulent transactions for up to 30 days. Some have been known to take up to 60 days to resolve an issue. You know the option I use? PayPal. That is the option I use. And if you look at more and more of these stores, they're giving you the option for PayPal. Okay? Here's the other thing. Don't use public Wi-Fi without SSL encryption. So I'm throwing out these different terms, but public Wi-Fi can be a hacker's dream. You know, if they want, they could see what websites you're using, you're visiting, and insert malware into your computer or any other device that you're using. The hacker also has access to any information you're sending over the internet, which can include credit card numbers or other critical information. That is halting hackers for the holidays. So I think next up we have, this is kind of a hybrid show. We're going to have a next guest in the queue, but want to thank Darby Fox for joining the show tonight. We're going to do an extended podcast for our archived listeners, but I want to say thank you guys. Thanks once again. Really appreciate you joining us, you listening, and love the feedback. All right? Thanks so much. Thanks again, and look forward to talking with you guys next week.